Welcome, students. In this episode, we will be learning about 4 major types of large biological molecules called macromolecules. At the completion of this lesson, you will be able to describe the basic molecular structure of the 4 types of macromolecules and describe their primary functions. Stand by for transfer to Spacegate Station.
Let's see, do I put a colony here, or would it be better to wait?
Specialist Barber, this game has been going on forever. Just make a decision.
You can't rush Space Monopoly. It is a game that needs to be savored for its nuances and complex strategies.
Commander Collins, I have been monitoring your activity and you have only been playing for 6 hours, 22 minutes, and 32 seconds.
Really? Is that all it has been? It feels like it has been much longer.
Processing. The perceived time interval between 2 successive events is referred to as perceived time duration. In humans, temporal illusions help to expose the underlying neutral mechanisms of time perception. A temporal illusion is a distortion in the perception of time, which affects estimating time intervals or estimating time duration.
Thank you, Aurora. You know, that information definitely made this experience much more memorable.
You are most welcome, Commander Collins.
Now, should I make this colony bigger? Or maybe I should have done that last turn.
Barbara, really? You're thinking about what you should have done a while ago? Just concentrate on this move. That ship has sailed.
Processing.
You had to do that?
A ship is a large watercraft that travels the Earth's oceans and other sufficiently deep waterways, carrying goods or passengers, or in support of specialized missions such as defense, research, and fishing. Ships are generally distinguished from boats based on size, shape, load capacity, and purpose. Since we are in space and there are no bodies of water that are in close proximity to the station, I am confused. Specialist Barber is not scheduled for vacation for 3 more months. Therefore, I do not see how she could miss passage on such a vehicle.
No, Aurora. Commander Collins meant that I was reflecting on a lost opportunity, a missed shot. You know, she was just using another idiom. We have had multiple discussions about not using those now that she's been assigned permanently as the commander of Spacegate Station.
Well, you know, apparently this marathon monopoly has caused me to lose my mind.
Really?
Processing. In psychiatry, the term losing your mind refers to psychological derailment, which is a thought disorder characterized by the slippage of ideas further and further from the point of a discussion. If this is the case, I should immediately contact NASA Medical for Commander Collins, as this is one of the first signs of mania secondary to prolonged exposure to space.
No, Aurora, that won't be necessary. Commander Collins was just kidding.
Aurora, I was just using humor to cope with my present level of hopelessness that this game will never end.
Perhaps we should take a break.
You think?
Hi, ladies. How's the game?
Don't even ask. I'm going to have to contact the Guinness World Book of Records to let them know about the longest space Monopoly game.
Commander Collins is exaggerating. This game has only gone on for a little over 6 hours.
Sounds fun. I was just looking for Dr. Carafano. We're going to record a video for his students on macromolecules.
Well, he told me a little while ago that he was heading over to the new laboratory. He's probably there by now.
Professor Baker, I can confirm Dr. Carafano is in the station's new laboratory unit. I have scheduled his instructional lesson to begin in 7 minutes and 33 seconds.
Thank you, Aurora. Well, I guess I better go. Enjoy your game, ladies.
Yeah, if I can stay awake.
You know, we don't have to keep playing Space Monopoly. Have you ever heard of the board game Campaign for North Africa? An average game of that can last up to 1,500 hours.
Well, Dr. Carafano, are you ready?
I certainly hope so. Thank you so much, Professor Baker, for being here today. You know, this lesson we're going over is really important, but it's also very difficult for our students to understand, especially those that are studying life science and biology.
No problem. Macromolecules are one of my favorite things to talk about.
I am ready to record the lesson for today, Dr. Carafano.
Thank you, Aurora. You can begin the recording now. Welcome, students, to Spacegate Station. I'm Dr. Carafano, the Chief Science Officer here at Spacegate. And with me today is my friend, Professor Baker. She is the Chief Exobiologist on the Lunar Laboratory. Now, Professor Baker, could you tell the students a little bit about the Lunar Laboratory and especially that amazing botany lab that you work in?
Of course, Dr. Carafano, thank you. Welcome, students. In our lunar botany lab, which was specifically designed to observe plant growth both in Mars and in space, we are looking at how scientists and astronauts can grow their own food to extend their food supply and provide the necessary nutrients that they need, such as carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins.
And that's a great transition into what we're talking about today. Because in today's lesson, we're going to learn about macromolecules. I think to start with, we should have Aurora explain it. Aurora, could you please explain to our students what a macromolecule is?
A macromolecule is a very large molecule that is composed of thousands of atoms all bonded together. Describing macromolecules as large is relative. They are referred as macro because they are large compared to other smaller molecules. However, this does not mean that they are large enough to view with the naked eye. Even a large macromolecule like blood hemoglobin is still 1,000,000 times smaller than a grain of rice.
That was very good, Aurora. Perhaps you can identify what we mean by monomers and polymers when we're talking about macromolecules.
Of course, Professor Baker. A monomer is a small molecule that acts as a building block for a larger molecule. These building blocks were put together, provide the identity for the larger molecule, just like the ingredients of a recipe are used to make a pie. When a large molecule is made of repeating subunits or monomers, is then known as a polymer.
Thank you, Aurora. Well, Professor Baker, what do you think is now the next important thing we should tell our students about macromolecules?
Well, Dr. Carafano, as you know, the four most important macromolecules are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. These four macromolecules are the building blocks that provide your students and our astronauts with the things that they need to maintain their bodies and keep them healthy.
That is so true. You know, it's interesting that the human body is really an assortment of atoms. It's a collection of these four major important biological molecules. Now, that's not to say that these are the only molecules in the human body, but these major molecules that are so essential and important can be divided into four groups.
Aurora, perhaps you can tell us more about these four macromolecules in depth.
I think maybe, Aurora, we could start with the macromolecule protein. Aurora, can you please define for us the macromolecule protein?
Proteins are made up of the monomer amino acids. Proteins have multiple functions and serve as major workers in the body. Proteins provide cell structure, send chemical signals, speed up chemical reactions, and make up motor and other structural elements in the cell. Examples of proteins are keratin, which is found in hair and nails, hormones, enzymes, and antibodies.
That was a very good description, Aurora.
And in front of us, students, we have two examples of proteins. Now this is a protein powder, and it's what we use on the station to improve our protein intake. Athletes also use protein powder in order to help them build muscle mass. Now over here, this is a special type of protein called keratin, but I'm sure you are more familiar with the term hair, and it's not easy to get this much hair on a space station.
Perhaps, Aurora, you can tell us more about the macromolecule lipids.
Lipids have two monomers, fatty acids and glycerol. They are used for long-term energy storage, thermal insulation, and protection. Lipids help make up cell membranes and allow for the selective passage of nutrients through the walls of cells. Examples of lipids are fats, waxes, oils, greases, and steroids.
Thank you, Aurora.
Here we have some examples of lipids. In this beaker, we have vegetable oil, which is used for cooking. Then in this beaker, we also have animal fat, which is used to make wax.
Well, perhaps we should move on to the next macromolecule. Aurora, could you please explain to our students the macromolecule carbohydrate?
Carbohydrates are made up of monomers called monosaccharides, which are simple sugars. They cannot be broken down by the body through metabolism any further. The simple sugars are glucose, fructose, and galactose, and are considered a basic building block. These simple sugars are combined to make up a polymer called a polysaccharide, which is another name for a carbohydrate. Carbohydrates' major functions include short-term energy provision, blood glucose regulation, and are used to break down fatty acids. Sources of carbohydrates are glucose, sucrose, starch, and cellulose.
Thank you, Aurora. Dr. Carafano, did you know carbohydrates are a very important part of our diet? That's why here we're looking at growing things like lettuce and beans.
That's really interesting. It's sort of like a Martian salad, which kind of makes me feel a little hungry. But I guess we'll have to wait to go to the mess hall until after we finish this instructional lesson.
I agree. Aurora, could you tell us about the final macromolecule, nucleic acids?
Of course, Professor Baker. Nucleic acids are made up of the monomer called nucleotides, which are organic molecules that form deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, and ribonucleic acid, RNA. DNA is a long double-stranded molecule made up of bases located in the cell's nucleus. The order of these bases determines the genetic blueprint for the cell. To read these blueprints, the double helix of the DNA is unzipped to expose the individual strands, and an enzyme translates them into a mobile intermediate message called RNA. Essentially, these nucleic acids store and pass on genetic information and are essential to biological processes.
That was a good explanation, Aurora. Thank you so much for making it clear to our students not only what macromolecules are, but how important macromolecules are to us.
That's right, because whether on Earth or in space, these macromolecules should be an essential part of your diet. They are the building blocks, you know.
Well, students, this concludes our lesson for today. Professor Baker, thank you so much for coming up to the station to work with our students so they could learn about macromolecules. I hope someday we can come down to the lunar lab and you could show us the amazing botany lab that you work in.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Carafano.
Well, students, we hope to see you again someday at Space Gate Station. Until then, Aurora, you can end this recording.
Recording terminated.
So, how did you enjoy recording your first SpaceGate lesson?
I really enjoyed getting the opportunity to talk to students about one of my most favorite subjects. You know, macromolecules are really the building blocks for understanding biology.
Well, I have to admit, after watching a recording of you and Dr. Carafano explain macromolecules to the students, I have a better understanding of it. Biology is just really not my thing. You know, I'm a math person.
I am so glad I found you two. Look what came up on the supply ship. Beatles Monopoly. Are we lucky or what?
Processing. The Beatles were an English rock band formed in Liverpool in 1960. The group was comprised of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. They are regarded as the most influential band of all time. The band acquired the nickname the Fab Four. By early 1964, the Beatles were international stars, leading the British invasion of the United States pop market, breaking numerous sales records.
Aurora, you are so right. So, Beatles Monopoly, anyone?
You know, I would love to, but I have to go and run a diagnostic on the lunar lake colony, and I can't hold it off any longer. So maybe next time.
Yeah.
I would love to, but I have an experiment in the lunar botany lab, and I think I smell something, so not right now.
Wow. I can't believe they're giving up the opportunity to play Beatles Monopoly. It's the best version ever. Aurora, I guess it's just you and me. I get to teach you how to play this game. It is a classic.
Unfortunately, Specialist Barber, I have to run an internal system check of my mainframe to evaluate some logic pathways I have noted as of late. To quote John Lennon and Paul McCartney from the Magical Mystery Tour,
You say yes, I say no.
Really, Aurora? That is not funny. Aurora.
this concludes our latest episode of SpaceGate Station.